spiritual exercise, you will be provided with 1 minute of meditation time between each station. If you desire more time, hit pause each time you hear the bell ring. When you are ready to begin again, simply hit play. Listen to the words. Look at the pictures. I invite you now to sit comfortably. Take a deep breath in. Blow it out. Let us begin our journey.
In words and in attitudes, we point the finger at each other and ourselves. The Romans condemned Jesus to death as a rabble-rouser, a supposed threat to the Pax Romana. But all it did was to reveal to everyone how much their rule over Palestine was based on brute force alone. They condemned Jesus, but in doing so, they condemned their own occupation of Jesus' homeland. Likewise, when things happen that are out of our control, we lash out looking to place blame.
Whom do you blame for the ways in which you suffer? In what ways does your blaming and condemnation of others make you suffer more, as well as to cause them hurt and harm?
Cross is laid upon you.
We each have our own cross to bear. This common phrase has some truth to it. Suffering is the universal condition of humankind. Christian religion makes this point by making the cross its most central image. Buddhism, too, begins with this recognition. The Buddha's first station on his path to enlightenment was to recognize that all life is suffering. But for Jesus, according to the legends that shaped the medieval stations of the cross was unbearable. It was too heavy for him to carry, after being whipped and scourged by the Romans. And for us too, there are times when our crosses are too heavy to bear.
Medical professionals are carrying the biggest burden of the COVID-19 crisis. We can help lighten the load by staying home. People who live alone are feeling especially isolated. We can call and check on them to lighten their burden. We all need help with the cross we carry. How can you lighten the load for someone this week?
Jesus falls.
According to the station's legends, Jesus fell 3 times as he was marched to Golgotha to be crucified. Each of us will fall at some point in life, a tripping on rock, a life crisis, an illness, or just old age. To fall down is an injury to one's dignity as well as to one's body. Yet Jesus said in Matthew 21:42-44 that the stone of stumbling would become the cornerstone, the most important stone in the building of the new kingdom of heaven. We all fall down, and while this is painful for us, it is also what levels us all, rich and poor, strong and weak, famous and unknown, and puts us in our place. And there is the promise that our stone of stumbling can be transformed into the cornerstone of the new life on the other side of the cross.
What is the stone that makes you stumble and fall during the pandemic? How did your stumbling stone be transformed into the foundation of a new and better life for you and others?
Jesus and Mary endured one of the greatest trials that confronts human beings. The son had to endure humiliation in front of his mother, and the mother had to witness the destruction of her son. Being in relationship can bring joy and heartbreak.
How have relationships in isolation been a heartbreak? What joys have you discovered about relationships which you might not have recognized before sheltering in place?
Simon of Cyrene was made to bear the cross.
Jesus was too weak to carry his own cross, according to the station's legends. A man named Simon, who came to Jerusalem from his home in Cyrene in North Africa to celebrate Passover in Jerusalem, was picked, apparently at random, to carry Jesus' cross. Sometimes we are asked to carry burdens for other people. They need our help, and we are called to make sacrifices for them. But sometimes we feel that by doing so, we are participating in their own destruction. When is it right to take on the burdens of others? And when should we let them suffer on their own? But in the end, we each are called to bear the suffering of others, and others are asked to bear our own. Jesus carried the cross out of love for the people around him, and Simon carried it for Jesus.
What crosses are you asked to carry for others? Do you do so willingly or grudgingly? Does taking up their crosses help them or hurt them cross can you help others carry during this pandemic?
Jesus' face is wiped by Veronica.
According to the station's legends, Veronica was one of the women of Jerusalem who followed Jesus to the cross. She wiped his face to offer comfort, and his image remained on the cloth. The cloth became a relic that had healing powers. The name Veronica probably means true image, the true image of the Christ, which can be found in every human being.
Look in the mirror. Do you see the true image of the Christ in your own image? How can you reflect Christ to others in times of crisis?
Jesus encountered a group of women who were his followers, who wailed about his impending death. He told them to wail not for him, but instead for themselves and for Jerusalem, which he predicted would one day be destroyed. Indeed, about 70 years later, the Romans completely destroyed Jerusalem, and the people of Israel were driven out of the country, not to return until this past century. Sometimes we lack perspective. We act as if our troubles are just our own, but none of us lives in a vacuum. Each of us is a part of a larger history, a longer and bigger human drama. Understanding our place in history is both a comfort and a curse.
Where do you see yourself in the midst of the pandemic? What is your role in the bigger human drama of destruction and redemption? How can you make a difference in the unfolding of human destiny?
stripped of his garments.
In Jesus' time, it was extremely humiliating to be stripped naked, even more so than it is today. Jesus was completely exposed. There was nothing hidden anymore. His robe or cloak was taken by the Roman soldiers, who drew lots to see which of them would get it.
Personal protection equipment such as face masks and paper gowns are at low supply, putting our medical professionals at great risk. They have been stripped of their garments. In what ways can you help those who are helping us?
Jesus is crucified.
His last words were, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This was the moment of Jesus' worst suffering, but it was also the pivotal moment of the gospel legend, the precise moment when God and human beings are closest together, the precise moment when divine salvation comes to humanity. Only through this moment is the door to the other side of the cross opened.
Do you feel you have been forsaken by God? When have you been closest to God? God is most often found in the eyes of another. Check in on those who are isolated, alone.
Jesus dies on the cross.
Jesus really died. No matter how you read the story, whether literally or figuratively, the Jesus who lived before the crucifixion was different than the Christ who was resurrected. The gospel stories in the Bible show that the resurrected Christ was substantially different after his death than he was before the crucifixion. Jesus was never quite the same after his death. And so it is with us. We experience little deaths that change us forever. We really aren't the same people exactly that we were when we were children, nor will we be exactly the same people in years to come. Each major passage of life, childhood to adolescence, adolescence to adulthood, parenthood to grandparenthood, leaves us changed forever, makes us different people than we were before.
What part of you has died? What part of you is dying? What new life is emerging from these deaths?
body is taken down from the cross.
The Gospels tell us that one of the rulers of Israel, a man named Joseph of Arimathea, secretly admired Jesus and asked to remove and bury his body after his crucifixion. Quietly, Joseph took on this sad and thankless task, which surely must have exposed him to danger from the Romans, as well as the other members of the Jewish Sanhedrin.
Some things we do are thankless tasks. No one notices. No one thanks us. In this time of sheltering in place, who have you noticed doing thankless tasks? How can you recognize their efforts from a safe distance?
His body is laid in the tomb.
Jesus' death was shameful, but he was buried respectfully and honorably. Joseph of Arimathea wrapped his body in a shroud and placed it in a new tomb with herbs and spices in the traditional manner. So often we treat a person one way in life, quite another way after their death. Can we celebrate each other's lives while we are still alive, at least as much as we celebrate each other's lives after death? The tomb was the cocoon, the womb, in which the story of Jesus, the historical person of first-century Palestine, gestated and was transformed into the universal and eternal Christ. Each of the 3 days in the tomb was a trimester in that gestation period, ending with the resurrection we celebrate at Easter.
What part of your life feels entombed, on hold, unseen, dead to the world